Hello and welcome to the Lifestyle Series, a podcast where we explore the trends, innovations, and stories shaping the future of hotels and hospitality across the globe. I'm your host, Andrew Taylor, Managing Director of Creative Hotels and Lifestyle. This is your go-to place for insights from some of the best minds in design, hotels, and hospitality. Please subscribe, follow us on Instagram at CreativeHL, and visit our website at www.creativehl.com for more. So Jinou Park, welcome to the Lifestyle Series, man.
Thanks for having me, Andrew.
I mean, really excited to have you on board. And I think we met only about a month or two ago in Bangkok, and you were presenting the keynote speech for the Boutique Hotel Series, which is an inaugural event up there. Yeah. Mate, I think it was lovely to kind of get to know you better, but I think what really resonated with me was just kind of how you presented a speech there that was kind of the time, in the sense that a lot of the people in the room really needed to hear about how boutique hotels have arrived, the history of that in different parts of the world. I mean, do you want to maybe just touch on how the journey for you has led to this point in your career where you're invited to give a speech on boutique and independent hotels?
Well, I mean, I think the main reason I was there was because Betsy, the organizer, asked me to. Yeah. But that's what it's about. People who cross paths with you in the past, and you ask for help and you try to help out wherever you can. And
of course.
So that's why I was there. But yeah, I mean, it was, I actually took it to heart and spent some time on it in doing that presentation. Because, when somebody is doing the very first of the series, conference, and asks you to do a keynote speech, I'm like, what do you do,
No pressure, right? Yep.
Yeah. But, so, I really it was a great opportunity for me to step back a little bit and think about, the definition, because these are terms that we throw around a lot. And certainly as somebody who writes or enjoys writing, I think a lot about words and vocabulary and what it means and how it's abused or, overly used. And sometimes kind of even push the agenda to use it correctly, so that we kind of get it back to where it was. But I think boutique is one of those words that is used a lot, and everybody has a different definition for that, right? Certainly that was a big group in the room, and I'm sure different people had different notions of what it is.
Totally.
Yeah. So I figured, what? Let's kind of give it a shot, define what it is, and even go into a little bit of a short history, just totally my personal perspective, and I would get clear about that, when I was there. This is how I see it. But paint a little picture of what it means, what it constitutes, for different kind of building blocks that must be there. A little bit of history, and rather than making a boring history, I try to weave it through individuals,
right?
The people that taught me, and also many of them that I know personally, So I mean, obviously there are a lot of great visionary people out there that I haven't come across, but just try to weave that story through people I know, and because I know their story and then their vision a little bit. So that's how it came about.
I loved it, and I think it was really quite personable, mate. And you are very personable, but also I think quite honest and easy to listen to. So, what do you describe your role in hotels and hospitality as in 2025? And maybe we can explore how you got there in a second. But I think it's really interesting to kind of hear your view on the kind of value proposition that you're bringing to the space.
Yeah, I certainly have been around, for the lack of a better term. Nice. Went to school for it, so I took it seriously. Yeah. Pretty much being in hospitality as I see it in my entire professional life. Yeah. Different aspects of hospitality were kind of stretching the boundary of hospitality a little bit, but sure. But so my world has always been what I consider hospitality industry, but also brand, strong brands. So either large conglomerates like IHG that started out as a truly amazing, the most international luxury, hotel brand that I knew at the time.
Yeah.
Buying companies like brands like Holiday, and,
Right.
growing into a branding franchisor. So either kind of working for those guys in corporate capacity, or I've spent some time in Disney where
Yes.
I learned so much about guest experience.
Yes.
And how to balance that with operations and design, no doubt about it. I mean,
Right.
like it was quite refreshing when I walked in. It was like every commercial meeting I had that was like, really an Imagineer. They called it Imagineer, right? The Disney
Oh, wow.
designer. So
Amazing.
and the pull they have and the authority they have in commercial issues, right?
Okay.
So design comes into every conversation in any commercial decision or operating decision on a daily
Love it.
basis. So yeah, just being around the industry for some time, and also saw some booms and busts, obviously, like many of us have. And also just this real kind of making of a independent boutique, and also I think there are different things, but lifestyle,
Yes.
businesses, and certainly that coming into the hotel world.
Right.
So having really seen the rise of that,
Yeah, you've
know,
sort of been a part of the well, I wouldn't say just the trend, but your career's kind of also followed the trajectory in a sense of some of the lifestyle sector. I mean, there's probably no bigger brand that reflects what a lifestyle proposition could be in the sense of Disney. And then, of course, you go across to design hotels. And it's funny because I think we all think we know what design hotels was all about. It's kind of, because it's quite literal. It's like, are they just a collection of beautiful hotels? And, I think
appreciate that, but you're a minority, I think.
Right, and you kind of I've got the book up here somewhere. I think I may have collected from the old Claire one day when I was, stomping around with Timo one day. But I actually think that a bit like the word boutique, it's that it's kind of, some of these things are just still poorly understood. And my understanding is that you're not a designer by trade, so you've come through the other commercial side, right? Yeah. And then you end up being, though, leading the design hotel team for Asia Pac, and obviously growing their platform in this part of the world, which I think was an amazing platform and still is. But what was the kind of link there for you? I mean, obviously you're quite creative, but you're also good at the numbers, right, and good at the kind of commercial side of things.
I mean, it's so. In fact, when I received that call from Design Hotels, whether I was interested to join, I was really surprised, because I wasn't like, really in hotels in Asia at the time. So, but this is true. I had been staying in Design Hotels for at least about good 7-8 years by then.
Yeah.
It was 2016. So. And Design Hotel definitely still, it was part of, it was literally just getting acquired by SPG as I was doing, Starwood, as I was doing the interview, and then it closed during when I was hired, and then another acquisition by Marriott, and kind of became part of that greater data team. So at the time, it was still very small, very family operation. Klaus, the founder, was still around, and we were a family. And in fact, my interview was, again, I happened to be in Europe at the time. He flew me into Berlin for a day. We just spent the whole day talking.
Oh, fantastic! And then
basically that was the interview. With Klaus Sendlinger, who's the founder, and he's long gone now, but. He and his small team, and definitely there's some senior people, very small number of senior people from those early days that are still around.
Still there, yeah.
But it was a small group of team who really understood what Klaus's vision was,
Yeah.
and we bought into it. And he had some opinions about what a independent boutique hotel should be.
Mm-hmm.
Some radical,
Sure.
some defining, but we kind of followed. We believed in some of that, right? And a lot of the times it really got it in the way, those kind of criterias. And in fact, some of those building blocks I talked about at the boutique series, some of them definitely come from those kind of building blocks we thought about at the time. And some of those criterias can get in the way of growth for
Yes.
sure.
Yes.
And but there were properties that I wanted to go after for both
Sure.
commercial and experiential reasons, but just couldn't get into Design Hotel's portfolio,
Yeah.
because it didn't fit our very narrow and strict standards.
Is that right? Yeah.
So it was tremendous experience, and yeah, I mean, just a big part of what I love about this industry is meeting these interesting owner types. Right?
Yeah, types, these characters, right? Yeah.
Going out and chatting with them and trying to understand them. And you just had, if you don't mind me saying, you just had Paul Fishman on your podcast.
Yeah.
Listen to it, because I ran into Paul, a few years ago when it just opened the Little Albion, and I loved it.
Right.
I really dug it. So, but
It really worked, didn't it? And I think, as you say, there's these assets that are particularly special, but it often comes back to an individual or an individual's idea. And I think even in your presentation up in Bangkok, you talked about the kind of spiritual leader of the hotel, and whether that's a boutique hotel or a lifestyle hotel or any hotel, I would make a similar observation, which is that the owner's level of engagement with the hotel is often a really important factor for success, right?
Yeah.
Because operators, of course, have their own bias to operations or whatever it might be. And, to your point about brand, it's like Disney instilled in that business, and I don't know it, but what you said resonates with me, which is that they instilled in that business that the brand was everything. And when I worked for Starwood, and I described to my people who asked me about my career, I'm like, I went from a domestic hotel operator to Starwood, and I said it was like playing in the big league or the major league, right? It was such a different ball game. And not because the numbers were bigger or more fancy, but just because the way that they'd resolved the brands within the group was way more clear and compelling, and there was a lot of effort that went into that. So yeah, everything that you're saying makes a lot of sense with me, and it probably begs the question, Jinou, which is, what are the hotels in today's generation that aren't doing that? Where do they stand on the world stage? Because it feels a bit like there's become the kind of commoditization of brands, and then there's become this kind of much smaller grassroots sort of approach, and it's hard to kind of, in a sense, have both, isn't it, if we're being honest?
Absolutely. And actually, I would, what you just reminded me is in fact the work, the kind of the work that I do a lot, which is this kind of what the industry calls collection brands.
Yes.
Right. So every large hotel conglomerate I think they're really focused on that segment, because that's where the growth is.
For sure.
It's not the place where the growth is, but so whether it's Marriott, Hilton, Accor, IHG, they all have a series of kind of tiered collection brands in their portfolio, and I think that's kind of the real. There's the irony, where they are meant to be independently minded, spirited, lifestyle properties, but they are built designed and operated under the strict brand guidelines, within these conglomerates, right?
Right.
So yeah, definitely. I'm very, that type of work is very much the work I'm doing right now, creating brands for these collection brands and
Yes.
designing guest experiences and things like that. But yeah, it's an interesting challenge, and it just kind of, at every stage of the work, that conflict comes up.
Comes up. Yep.
On one hand, you're asked for, as a consultant or an agency, you're asked to be creative and create something distinctive and unique and one of a kind.
Right.
But at the same time, there's definite standards and rules and
Plenty of lots of guardrails and I think also just the corporate DNA of these groups is such that it's hard for them to particularly understand that there is they think it's a discipline or a structure that you've got to work by, and of course we're saying no, there's potentially another way. So yeah, it's a bit of a challenge, but I could empathise with that in the sense that, because we do a lot of hotel development and are working with hotel operators day in, day out as well, but on the development side, so more the commercial side, they're often saying to us, there's no such thing as a Park Hyatt standard hotel anymore. It's every hotel we do now has a new standard attached to it. And I think we're talking a bit more about design, not operating standard. But I think that's equally as challenging, because whether it's a brand like Alila, which was known as resorts, becoming an urban brand, or Park Hyatt or something else that's becoming more, Gen Z or whatever the case may be, the point is that these brands are kind of often expected to morph and shift around in the market that they are being applied to, right? And it's challenging. It's so good for you though.
I mean, you'd like to think in the world of design, I mean, these are kind of topics that you have to kind of get in the weeds, but in the world of design, I'm sure the designers would like to think they have utmost freedom, but the reality is, really, at least these large brands, they do understand that the guest experience direction, or guest experience design, must dictate the physical design, right? So, but that guest experience is very much governed by brand standards, and certainly, when we're asked to develop, guest experience for, let's say, guest rooms, there's some hard guardrails.
Yes.
Designing that. And certainly I try to maneuver within the guardrails to be creative and deliver a unique experience every time for that moment or for that destination. But we certainly get feedback from the brand team, to stay within certain guidelines.
Because you one of the other comments you made, which I loved at the time, was how a hotel can really, and this is for me the lifestyle kind of thread that is so, I guess it's what we're super passionate about, but it's also really obvious, is that hotels have always inspired their guests. So they take something from the hotel with them when they leave, and I don't mean physically, not the free, the souvenir as such, but the experience. So and it stays with them well after they've left the hotel. And I'm sure we can all talk about versions of those experiences that we've had over the years. I mean, your favorite hotel where it's something stayed with you and it inspired you. And I think that's even harder to deliver in the principles that you just mentioned. But I guess at the end of the day, that's the thing that I think we all want to remember. So it's this thing of, how do we create, I guess we all talk about create moments and create, unforgettable experiences. These are the kind of catchphrases that these brands love to work on. I know you talk in your, some of the services you offer about stages of the guest journey. And I guess so you are kind of, you've got to bring it to life, right, somehow. So, I mean, in other words, it's not just a brand that sits in the back, or it's not just a concept that is artificial. It's like, how do you deliver those experiences? So does that mean you're actually kind of designing experiences as you go with what you're doing?
Very much so. And, that's kind of the remit that we are given by certain brands. When let's say we create a brand for, let's say, a luxury collection somewhere, for example. So the brand experience is very much part of what we're asked to develop. It's a huge part of the work, actually. But we have this thing, and we're certainly not the first, but we have this methodology called the experience principles. So before we dive into what guest room experience ought to be like, or what bathroom experience, guest bathroom experience ought to be like, obviously the starting point is the brand and what the story and the narrative of the brand is. But we have this kind of intermediate and very important step where we define what we call experience principles. So those are kind of simple, easy to understand, well-defined, real principles that should reside in all these different stages of the guest experience. So it's really translating what a brand proposition is, or what brand narrative is, into the experience arena.
Okay. And can you give us an example of, like, one of the things I notice here is well-being and F&B. They're the things that I always go to. I mean, I go to, well, I guess the rival too, which is number one on your point, and welcome. But I go, if I can't get these F&B experiences right, and for me, this wellness journey that I'm on, both personally and I think guests are now globally very much attuned to, in my opinion, they become these infinite opportunities within a hotel. You know what I mean? So that, once again, if we're going to inspire our guests to be better people or better citizens, then to me, they're two really obvious things that I love to zero in on pretty quick. So, but are there any examples you can think of, or that maybe come to mind, about just how you're kind of molding and shaping that as that journey might go on?
Yeah, I mean, just this very recent project that we're in the process of pretty much finalizing. We just delivered a brand for a luxury collection in Tokyo, a new luxury collection in Tokyo, and here we wanted we call it welcome space. We don't use terms like lobby or reception and things like that. And this one thing I say, those are transactions, not guest experiences. Check in, check out is a transaction.
Right.
So we wanted the lobby, the welcome space to be a stage.
Oh, wow.
So what we wanted to do is, this is actually in Ginza. So there's just tremendous history, heritage, and energy outside the doors of the hotel.
Yes.
Right? We wanted this arrival experience or entry experience to be very porous. So we want inside out and outside in and all that.
Wow.
And we wanted this lobby. And this will, I got to be careful that I say these things, but it will be constructed by one of the largest construction company in Japan. So I kind of know what's going to come out, right?
Of course.
So,
So,
and when we're really designing these experiences, we have to be quite prescriptive. Otherwise, it's just going to become office building,
Sure.
So we really kind of insisted and really kind of got buy-in of the client to make this welcome space, the lobby space, a stage, so that the outside experiences live inside and vice versa. So we said, if you want to have a stage, then you need a show. So that show is going to be a small F&B space inside the lobby. And again, Andrew, none of these are rocket science, right?
No.
We see F&B in the lobby almost all the time. But the challenge is, how do you make it more than a lounge cafe, right?
More dynamic, more engaging, more time spent in the space. I mean, as you say, all those factors that we're all striving for, more revenue, obviously. I think that's a wonderful example.
And just to kind of finish that up, so in our
Sure.
like we call it 7 stages as there's a standard, and we modify that for different projects. But one of the stages is a social stage. So that stage can be sometimes for larger hotels it could be just events and banquet space. And the challenge there is how do we make that a little bit more interactive and really genuinely social so that people can come together and have a
Right.
great time,
Right.
as opposed to making it very functional. But here, for this Ginza project, that F&B space was also meant to be our social space.
Yeah.
So it was really about, more than be seen and see, because certainly Ginza can be like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But, really where you can interact with other guests or other visitors who happen to visit the hotel, and also interact with the staff, the team, right? So how do we really create that kind of social ambiance, and what is the right small F&B concept that makes that happen? So those were kind of that's an example of the work we do, and hopefully an example that serves your question.
No, it does. And does that mean working closely with the operational team at let's call it once it's up and going, but also question for you around the design team. Are you kind of guiding them about the principles and effectively briefing them on what the space is and how it works? Because my experience with these things, is that we can, of course, bring on board the most incredible designers from around the world, but unless we've got a clear vision and a clear, in a sense, commercial mandate around what it is we're trying to achieve, then they will struggle. It's just as simple as that. Or they'll give us a default position which is not innovative or not different. So,
No, these projects definitely, there are processes in place where that there is a proper handover from a brand agency to a design agency. And in fact, in the very first stages of kind of concept development and design development, we are asked to come in every now and then and just give some feedback to make sure that the original guest experience design is being followed through.
Would it shock you if I said that 80% of the hotels that I know of aren't using you in the capacity that you're talking about? And the concern that then makes me think about is that, well, what's happening with the guest experience? What are we defaulting to? And all of a sudden I've got a bit of an oh shit moment where I'm like, what are we doing here? I mean, in other words, we're designing beautiful hotels and we're handing them over to operators, but I don't think we're always thinking through the elements and the kind of the curation of that experience as we go. I've been doing this a long time, like yourself, my friend, and the number of projects that I think lack that would far outweigh the ones that do have it. So
I think so. I think that's kind of the reality. But at the same time, I guess I am very happy to see that these processes are being put into place.
yeah,
It's certainly for clients of mine, and so I'm just very happy with that development.
Yeah.
People take translating brand into guest experience through design and operation seriously.
good.
And these processes are being built, and it's starting to happen. As you say, I think it's the minority of the projects go through this process, but it's definitely starting.
Well, and I think that even the big brands that lean into the lifestyle sectors or the lifestyle positioning and so forth, they're coming a bit alert to the problem, because they've realised that whether it's F&B or whether it's wellness, they're kind of being outshone very quickly by the innovators in the market. And I guess I can speak for that, personally here in Australia, that's one of the bugbears, but also the challenges here locally, is that you kind of can't rest on the brand and go, oh no, it's going to be okay because it's backed by XYZ, or it's backed by, like you said, an IHG or a Marriott or a Hilton. That's kind of not enough anymore. So
Yeah, I mean, certainly big and small innovations, a lot of those innovations come out of boutique hotels,
right,
kind of
right.
full circle to that. So I certainly try to be very alert to what's going on in different regions of different, interesting new hotels that come onto the market and interesting things that they do, and trying to learn from it and use it as best practice, and again innovate based on that. So
Couldn't have said it better. But listen, I'm going to read a quote that you also said when we were up in Bangkok, and it might be not perfect, but you said the world is not normal. You said from from COVID to the war in Ukraine, we live in a disruptive world, and it really impacts on the mindset and behavior of our target customers.
yeah,
And you went on to sort of talk about the importance for brands to stand for something.
yeah, yeah.
And so it sounded also like a bit of a personal mission statement of yours, where you were kind of going, how can we do some good here? How can we be known for being more than, as you said, maybe it's a commercial transaction or a place to put your head for the night? So how is that informing your work and the hotels that you're trying to, I guess, elevate or work on, or, I'm really curious about this whole point about mission and purpose.
Yeah. No, well, first of all, thanks for recognizing that. And,
Yeah.
so just some background. So I started Normal at the height of the pandemic, and I think like many of us, we paused for a while, for a long while, gave us a lot of time to dissect our lives. So I think I'm talking about some common experience for many of us. So I certainly thought a lot about my life, my work. One thing that dawned on me around that time is that I can't separate work and life.
Yeah.
And it's not a bad thing at all. And I guess for a long time, I try to, bring balance into my life, separating it. And I really realized that's the wrong approach. I have to bring life into work and, work into my life,
Yes.
and really make it into one and make it really authentic, hopefully. Right? So it kind of comes out from that. So we're living in this kind of crazy time at the time, and I look at the world and go, how do I find normalcy? And that kind of became Normal became the name of the work I do.
Love it. Love it.
But I actually believe, and I'm sure you agree, and many of your listeners agree, that there has to be a genuine mission and purpose behind the brand, and the guests have to see that, because they've just gone through it in their lives, So why would you not expect it when you're buying, voting with your wallet,
Right.
So
right.
So every project I get involved in, this is kind of the conversation that I try to bring with the owners and the operators, that this topic of purpose, everybody has a purpose, but when you're asked, we all stumble. I understand that, but let's kind of talk about it, and of course, if it's a real more boutique type project, this conversation is so much easier because there is that spiritual leader in the room.
Sure.
And in fact, you'll be amazed how often his closely knit team don't know what his mission in life is, right? And when I try to bring that into the conversation, a lot of the times there's appreciation from both the figurative head, because he or she was given an opportunity to kind of think about it and voice it out loud.
Yep.
And the team has now heard it and understand it. Not all projects, but some of my project, it starts from there. We have a small workshop on purpose, and it starts from there, and then that's like the very first step of brand building.
I love it. I think it's just so important, and you know, it wasn't until you said this at the conference that I started to reflect on it a lot more, and you know, the projects that we're working on. So you know, thanks for kind of forcing me to do that. And as you know, I sort of reached out to you saying, we might need your help, you know, as in, because I think to your point, it's like we all talk about our narrative and often it's design centric, or it's our narrative that's written by, to your point, the architect or the project team, but getting to the heart of the owner team or the visionary or the whoever, I think it's really important to understand what are the values that are driving the experience. I mean, I just think that's, and you know, obviously there are founders of these brands that have obviously instilled that better than others. You know, I think of Barry Sternlick with One Hotel, but obviously, and there's many more. So, you know, Bill Kimpton, there's, you know, Klaus, as you mentioned, I know he's onto his next project, you know, which is different again. And it feels like, again, these people are going to stick to their mission in life, which is that if they're going to do a hotel, they want to do it with real purpose and real clarity. But it does take a bit of, you've got to be pretty bold and courageous to do that, because you're also saying no to other things, right? You might be saying no to certain segments in the market or price points or whatever it might be. But you know, I think it's a positive rather than a negative for sure.
Yeah.
Mate, the other one that came across in the research and just background with you was Dieter Rams, the German industrial designer. So, like, I'm not suggesting you're an expert, and I'm certainly not, because he's new to me. But I think this philosophy of less is more is really interesting as well. And talk about it as a design principle, but if you apply it to the world of hotels, but also more broadly than that, I think there's probably some interesting things. How is it kind of, what are some of the things that it's kind of just made you think about in the past?
Yeah, so Dieter Rams, I don't remember the exact title he had, but he was definitely the chief designer, creative director of Braun during the late 60s and 70s, that electrical household device revolution.
Right.
And design kind of came into it. So, you know, if I flashed a few kind of prototype, you know, model videos and whatnot, you will recognize them either by that product or because somebody else exactly copied that, that aesthetic and that functionality. So you'll definitely recognize it. And in fact, now that you asked me, I just remembered in one of my presentations a while back, I flashed, I forget the model number, but Braun radio, early model, you know, and the very first iPod.
Oh wow!
You know, that circle, the track in the center.
Yeah,
looks identical.
Oh wow!
Right.
Wow.
So obviously Johnny Ives, you know, who designed all these Apple products, you know where it came from, right? So clearly, Dieter Rams had a lot of profound influence, and I think
sure.
I think he did many. I don't know if he was the in-house designer or not, but he certainly did furniture for Vitra, and then other brands like that. So basically, somebody I love in terms of design, but you know, he has this motto called "less but better."
Okay.
Yeah, obviously in German that I don't know. But better, and it's you know, at some point it's kind of come into my life, and it is definitely the North Star,
right.
You know, the North Star probably for my life and work. And it's something simple as when I'm doing the final proofreading of an email before it goes out, you know, I'm just looking for places to take out words and, you know, make it simpler and shorter. So it's simple and important examples like that to guest experience design or brand design.
Yeah, because it reminds me when I did a little bit of research that some of the principles I thought could apply so easily to a hotel's both design, delivery, and execution of the experience, that it was ridiculous how much the themes could work across these different industries. But he's like, good design is innovative, of course. It's like a good hotel is breaking mold of what's been before them. A good design is honest, and I love that word because, perhaps sometimes we get a bit caught up in the world of what hotels should be, or the kind of, as you said, to be seen in a hotel, or the kind of level of exclusivity that's attached to them. I think in Australia, it's actually culturally, I think we've always struggled with this idea of, if I don't have a room in the hotel, am I even allowed to visit the lobby? Am I allowed to use the amenity? And that's been, I think that's a cultural thing of Australians generally. So we've always tried hard to kind of, this idea of honesty, I think is interesting, because it makes us think, how do you bring the average citizen into the hotel experience?
Yeah, that social space, that we try to put into the welcome space of a hotel was very much about that. How to bring this energy, tremendous energy that's outside, how do we bring that into the hotel?
Yeah. And then I love these couple, just to finish, is like, good design is long lasting. I mean, can you think of the amount of hotels that have been trendy and cool and on point for about 5 minutes and not gone the distance, and yet the ones that we often talk about? I mean, I thought your example of the Old Clare, just in discussions with me earlier, that's a good one. It's now over 10 years old. I think it must be a few more years than that now, but it kind of, the design hadn't changed in those 10 years. And that's only a small independent hotel in Australia, but sometimes it's the Park Hyatt in Sydney, or it's these kind of somewhat iconic hotels that have stood the test of time.
Right.
And then of course this one, which is just everything, but good design is down to the last detail. And of course, I would say that a good hotel experience is exactly about that as well, right? Because you can have the most amazing hardware and experience from a physical perspective, but if the service lets you down, or there's a kind of a moment where something's not right, then the whole thing will fall apart.
Yeah. No, and you talked on many other key themes, but another kind of word I'd bring into the fold is what is essential. Thinking about essentialism.
Right.
So it's really this discipline of doing less,
Right.
But doing only the things that are essential.
Yeah.
So it's having that kind of discipline in the work we do.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, and I reflect often about hotel facilities and amenities that, as you say, are in the brand standards, and we're challenging them all the time. But the reality is, it's also like, there's a reason why you need a hotel gym, or as you said, there's an essential human need for exercise and movement. We've got to make sure it's quality, and they want these days, they want operable windows in their guest rooms as much as possible, so that there's natural ventilation. So, to your point, I think I'm getting a little bit granular, but there's some of the things that, jumped out at me as being important on this journey that we're on. So tell us a bit more about the studio, and obviously, I guess the observation I made about your background, mate, is because you've lived in different parts of the world, and Dad was an engineer growing up, and you had some amazing time, by the sound of it, in far-flung parts of the Middle East, and but it's you're one of these true global citizens, as I see it, that has an affinity for, I would say, the Southeast Asia, perhaps hotel and hospitality story. I'm sure it goes beyond that, but you've also got a global perspective around, connections into Europe and the US. And I think if we're, once again, honest with this hotel experience that we're building, whether it's in Australia or another part of the world, it's about how all these things are connected. That's how I feel about it anyway. So, I mean, do you reflect on that in the sense of your based in Seoul at the moment today, but that might change in the future, and you've got some, other perspectives on life, I suspect.
Yeah, no, I mean, thank God we live in a globalized world, and hopefully that doesn't mean homogenized,
Right.
Same everywhere you go, but you can learn from different cultures and different societies and different habits, and bring that into
Sure.
into brand experiences, in my world. So, it's definitely something I don't even think about.
Right.
My dad was an engineer in the 70s and 80s, and Koreans went out and built a lot of infrastructure,
Sure.
highways, the power stations and whatnot. So, early age, I left Korea and followed him around, and that took me to certain places, and then for education to the US and whatnot.
Right.
But I've been back in Asia since 2000, and of course, always traveling from here, but certainly saw tourism explode in different places. The sophistication of kind of the hotel market change over the years in different places. So all that learning and that perspective is what I try to incorporate into the work I do. But I genuinely see this, when I speak with conviction, making some recommendation about the brand, or making some specific recommendation for a guest experience somewhere. When I speak with conviction, not just head knowledge, but like, I saw this here,
Right. Yes.
and I'm gonna, find the image on Google to show you, what it looks like, and this is how it works there, and really go into the descriptions of what a guest really touches and feels and experiences, and talk about it with conviction. That's when we are able to sell certain ideas into a property. So, but a lot of the times it's about, and then again, thank God that the different cultures are curious about different ways of doing things,
Right.
and all the different habits, So whether it's trying to bring a kind of a pretty bland, authentic yet very everyday bland bathing experience in Japan into somewhere, in other parts of the world,
Sure.
to again a very common kind of social F&B dining experience into another culture.
So true.
And trying to do that, and I really believe that's not copying and pasting. That's taking some of the core innovative pillars and then adapting it, and really again innovating.
Sure.
On that. So that's definitely a rewarding experience and rewarding product.
Mate, yeah, I feel it when you just explained it. I think that makes a lot of sense to me, and it's a personal journey I'm on. I mean, Australia's a long way from everywhere, is what they say. But on the flip side, it's funny how an experience we had here recently with a project of all places, in Perth, and it's again even more remote. I think they call it the most isolated city in the world. But the challenges we were facing there with the client turned out to be challenges that they were facing with a project in Paris, of all places, in continental Europe, and the kind of the challenges of repositioning and the end of life of a certain asset that needed a whole new perspective, and how to make it relevant again. And I'm like, but it's Paris. I mean, surely they've got all the answers. They must do. And as you follow your nose and just sort of see how different parts of the world, they get it so right, but they also suffer from the same kind of, whether that's the kind of, the limitations of the market that they have put up for themselves. And so, mate, I think, as you say, whether it's you or me or just others, it's about asking the right questions and forcing them to kind of maybe consider another perspective, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is no new perspective, but when you're inside, you're just used to it. That's how it's always been done, and how everybody around you is doing it. So you get numb to that, and an outsider walks in and notices, these things, call them out.
Sure.
Why are you doing it that way?
Yeah. No, it's fascinating. I couldn't agree more. And mate, I mean, this has been a great conversation. I think, it's really, I feel like we're going to kind of get the opportunity to work together, I'm sure, in the future and explore,
Would love
how your kind of approach and your philosophy, I think, could bring a huge amount of value to just clients that we know and projects we have afoot here in this part of the world, but also abroad. Just in sort of closing, do you want to talk to me about where you see yourself, whether it's professionally or in retirement? And you're way too young for that, but I'm just curious about, you talked about this part of the world in Europe that you love in Italy.
Yeah.
Where is that?
Yeah. So, I try to spend as much time as I can, which is not a lot, in the summer and if possible during Lunar New Year break, I go to this one place in Umbria in Italy, in central Italy. I got there, I kind of ended up being there for a couple of different reasons. My younger sister, runs a business out of that area. She has a fashion business and she's there. But in fact, I think I went to not Umbria, but central Italy before her for sure, because I love
you like it. Yeah.
And then red wine is what brought me there. So, but as you probably know, like so this is Tuscany, and I love Brunello's and and other Tuscan wines. But it's just it's quite touristy this time of the year, so I try to stay away from Tuscany. So Umbria is also conveniently just across the border from Tuscany, and it's a neighboring state, and much more peaceful. Beautiful, different kind of beauty. Tuscany is more like pretty and ornate, and because it's the state that has money, but kept it well. But Umbria is more equally beautiful, that Italian countryside, but perhaps a little more rustic. I try to spend as much time as possible in just outside of Assisi. So you may have heard of Assisi.
Assisi,
Francisco, Saint Francisco of Assisi comes from. So just outside of Assisi is where I'm based. And I'll be off to there in about a week's time to get some stuff done.
Amazing.
And go spend some time there.
But it's a part of the Europe that I haven't seen. So, mate, as a small dedication to you, I've found myself a nice little red from that part of the world. It's not from Umbria exactly, but I'm going to toast you.
You haven't invited me to the party. I don't know.
The next time we get to catch up, we'll do it for real. Look out for a good bottle.
A little earlier than where you are here, so probably not drinking hour yet.
No, I know. Yeah. But, mate, cheers.
Yeah, thank you. Cheers.
And I think I wish you great success, mate. I think once again I reflect back on the keynote. It was powerful and interesting, and it's also not just about giving each other pats on the back about what we're individually doing. I think it's more as a movement and asking hard questions along the way. So one of the things that I kind of really want this podcast series to do is lift the lid on things that don't work, not in a kind of, confrontational or aggressive way. And remember, we work with owners and developers, as do you, but we also our biggest partners, in fact, are the operators and the brands. But I think we all owe it to each other to kind of work out the parts that are still missing. And clearly, from a project perspective, there's too much money going into these things. Of course, these all hotels are immensely challenging. I think you can probably agree with me on that.
Yeah.
So it's about bringing the right expertise in, Jinou. I'm sure that's obvious to you, but you know, for some of our hotel owners or developers or just partners that are listening, there's still some of the things that I think are crucially important along the way. And, you know, it's about enhancing or making that experience better. And it doesn't matter where the idea comes from. It's about making sure that it gets done and that the guest gets a better outcome at the end of the day, I would have thought.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but mate,
Well,
thanks. Yeah.
Thanks for having me here. I
No,
appreciate
mate, a pleasure. And I really am grateful for your time. It's been an honor. And let's stay in touch, my friend. I'll send you this
Likewise.
in due course, okay?
All right. Stay in touch. Thanks a lot, Anthony.
Take care, man.
All right. Bye for now.
Ciao.